Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
All right, welcome to the show, Morning in Spring on Western Spring Television. We've left the season of countdowns, but of course, it's time to also continue to count down. It's just 2 days before the end of the month of March, and that will mean that all of the election issues have been concluded, except where inconclusive elections were declared, and supplementary elections will now be held on the 15th of April this month. So we'll still have elections spilling over into the coming month. I particularly am looking forward to the 1st of April. I can't wait to pull some pranks on my friends and play them the April Fool prank. But then welcome to the show. My name is Emmanuel Ojadigele. It's so good to have you join us on the show this morning. You already know what we do for you here. We're reaching you live from StarTimes Channel 190 on the DTT platform, or you can follow us live on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. But on Twitter, it is at WSTV_MG. The social media handle is showing live on your screen there. And of course, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. We have the papers for you this morning. We also have our interview segment where we'll be looking at some of the developments around the president and some of the bills that he has signed, the constitution amendment bills now, to ensure that, you know, things go smoothly for the country. And after that, I'll be taking you through who is trending, what is trending, and why they are trending. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. After this break, we'll bring you the papers to stay with us. All right, welcome back to the show. As usual, I'm not alone. Temitope is in the studio this morning.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for joining us on the show this morning. It's the Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. I'm Temitope Ajijola.
All right, so let's get straight to the papers. Let's get straight to the newspapers and see what we have for you this morning. We begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper is where we start our journey this morning. And on the banner headline, you have that political story coming out from the People's Democratic Party yesterday. Suspension. IU heads for court as PDP appoints acting chair. That's on page 2. IU wants court to overturn suspension. Damagum to run party pending judgment. PDP recorded worst electoral outing under IU. And battle chair weak, gone for good. It's coming from the G5. Very strong choice of words there from the integrity governors, headed by Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State. Interestingly, there is no deputy leader of that group. It's just one leader. Nobody deputizes. So, well, IU, we had that video yesterday. We saw Damagum giving a press conference talking about how he will avail the public more information as he has it. But for now, the man is no longer there as the head of the PDP, talking about Yochi Ayu, who has been in the eye of the storm for quite a very long while.
And it would seem that the court does have a power over, Ayu was saying that only the NEC can suspend him or remove him. But then it does seem that the court also has the power to do that. And PDP has quickly moved on and appointed an acting chair.
Well, he stepped aside because of the court's judgment.
Yes.
He has not been able to get an injunction to overturn the judgment. So he steps aside, and the party cannot have a vacuum in its leadership. And so they had to put up Iliad Damagum to run the party. But away from that story, on page 30, federal government's $22 billion loan request rejected as coming from the House of Reps. I wonder what we need $22 billion for. But it's good to see that the economic realities of our country is dawning on everyone, and having to reject that loan request, it should be in the interest of the people.
Yes, and the reps have woken up to that reality as well, and have done the needful in that regard. That's a good one, especially if the loan is not justified.
Well, talking about loans and all of that, we'll move away from that story. Yeah, to the bottom strip of the paper, the Punch newspaper this morning. Ramadan Yobe reduces working hours for civil servants on page 41. A lot of persons will receive this with mixed feelings, but I think it's good. During the fasting month of Ramadan, the fasting does take a toll on people, especially those their productivity, especially those who are in the physically exerting department of the civil service. So it's good that the working hours are reduced, but I'm sure that they'll be able to fill it up so as to not cause a disconnect or a disjointed civil service. A good story coming out from Yobe State.
Yes,
there.
quite commendable.
Yes, Atiku Bagudu doing well for his people. Oh, that's Kebbi rather. Now let's go to pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper, where rampaging Ogun kidnappers kill 2 abduct couple. Another story of insecurity, another story of people paying the price, being casualties in the wicked schemes of their fellow Nigerians.
Yes. And we just hope that the government can, step up to this and help get those people that have been abducted back.
Well, we hope that happens. I'll move on to page 4 now, where 1 person has died, 7 have been injured as fire guts Lagos market. I saw videos coming out from that market yesterday, and you could see the despair and the pain on the faces of traders who have lost
one thing or the other, property.
A lot of things in that fire. I fear fire incidents and flooding. These 2 disasters don't take any prisoners. The devastation is usually total, is complete and subliminal. And to rebuild again, for me, is the toughest part of coming out of natural disasters. Coming out of natural disasters, because you look at what you once had, it's staring you right there in the face, and you can't do anything with it. You have to start all over. That's why most people who are victims of these things never come out of that, and the PTSD just weighs them down forever.
Yes, and because you need resources to always bounce back. You've lost resources. You need more resources, to bounce back, and that's really a very, very tough one to do. But then we also hope that the government can step up to this as well and give them some sort of, compensation.
Well, we hope that the government and also well-meaning Nigerians actually. This is the time to be philanthropic. It's not just during the political season because you want to canvass for votes that you spend money. Now is the time to look for victims of disasters, people who are internally displaced, and people who are generally rung of the ladder when it comes to societal needs. And please do your best to help them. Let's move over to the above the nameplate. Won't stop handover to Tinubu Shettima, the federal government. Of course, that stands to reason. Page 20, a lot of conspiracies and all of our theories. Same thing happened here in Osun during the sitting of the tribunal. The tribunal sat from August till January, and a lot of persons were saying that some ruling will be given that will stop the inauguration of Governor Ademola Adeleke. And I mean, it speaks to the fact that there's little education along that line for people, and many political supporters have been left at the mercy of political propagandists who cook up stories. I find it very, very funny that people who see white will tell you this is black. I mean, you see black rather and tell you, your hands are even stained by the black, but you say it's white, and then you preach that to other people who have no means of verifying or fact-checking.
Convince them.
I mean, so of course, no court case can stop that, except there is a judgment between now and May 29 that invalidates the election of Asiwaju Tinubu. So that won't stop. And of course, another story coming out from that angle is that the president has included Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and 2 of his aides in one of his visits outside the country for official purposes. That's to smoothen the transition process.
Yes.
Now on page 30, stop fuel subsidy, revive refineries, Pengassan tells government. Stop fuel subsidy, revive refineries, Pengasan tells government. Now, there's some ongoing conversations about the removal of subsidies.
Yes.
And it's been a long time coming, actually.
Yes, and it's looking like we might not be able to escape it in this coming administration, as it has been said over and over. And then I love the fact that they're also saying that the refineries should be revived. It's very important. If we are to remove fuel subsidy, and if we are to have it good with fuel and not have scarcity anymore, we need to revive our refineries, even if it is just one. We need it very much at this period.
Well, you can't have pots in your house. You can't have foodstuff rather in your house. And because your pots or your gas cooker isn't working very well, you give the food to your neighbor to cook, and then you buy that food from your neighbor because you just don't.
It's not economical.
You can't
not logical.
Yeah, it's not logical. Well, the best thing you should do is fix your gas cylinder so that you can make your own meals and save yourself the stress. And we hope that the government listens to Pengasan. Another cheering news on page 43 of the Punch newspaper. Labour shelves strike gives CBN fresh 2-week ultimatum. We're supposed to see the labor unions go on strike today, ASU, NLC, TLC, all of them, and then see the picketing of some CBN offices across the states of the Federation. But there was a meeting yesterday, and the resolution perhaps is what we're seeing now. That strike action has now been shelved, and the CBN has 2 weeks from now
once more
to ensure that
mercy has prevailed for the CBN governor and CBN as a whole. Let's see if they will make good use of those 2 weeks that have been leased to him.
Yes, ever since the president, gave that statement that he didn't tell anybody not to, obey the laws of the land. I've seen Emefiele run helter, go up and down, trying to, because now he no longer has, the support of the person who had been supporting him, the backing of the person, and so he knows now that he's clutching at straws as a loner. We hope that that desperation will lead to the good of the people being restored, and that people, some persons say they can now see money in the ATMs. It's just that you have to stay for long, and I hope that the POS operators who have been making life difficult for people really stop it.
I hope that people do not patronize them now.
No,
they can just take the pain and get to the banks before.
It's
difficult. Point was,
we were at the bank yesterday, Akru, and even to get into the bank is a problem, because before you get into the bank, the POS guys, some of them who are unscrupulous, who have connections, have gone there in the morning to take out all of the cash. During the whole Naira crunch, there was someone, a POS operator, who constantly, and you begin to wonder, how did they get them? That has changed people who would have gone to queue in the morning and all. So we are also our own problems, apart from the government. And I hope that those people really stop what they're doing and ensure that the efforts of the CBN governor do not go to waste. But you were trying to make point.
He has to also, be proactive as well. He was talking about the monitoring committee all the time. And I think that this is one of the times to put into effect the monitoring committee, to monitor what is going on at every bank, if it's possible, though, or at least, the headquarters of some of these banks and the dissemination of the money and how it is being managed and dispersed to people. So people do not get to, have monopoly of the notes. And so, because it's going to speak to how, like I was saying, how he manages or uses these 2 weeks that have been given to him. And I don't think after these 2 weeks, he would have any excuse or justification. Yes.
Well, that's all on the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, on the Guardian newspaper this morning, subsidy removal plan raises anxiety as Labour breaks rank. Subsidy removal plan raises anxiety as Labour breaks rank. And the riders, Labour not aware of palliative talks on subsidy. Pengasan okays subsidy removal, NLC resists deadline. Don't impoverish masses. Asen charges no government. Palliative Committee yet to harmonize positions, one incoming administration to propose pay rise, bear palliative burden.
Some interesting stories there. Well, it's just a couple of months, about 90 days before the implementation of the subsidy removal. But I think that no matter what side you are on, there are always arguments for and against the removal of subsidy. Some persons don't want it removed. Some want it removed, saying that it will give Nigeria this or that. But I'm not an expert. I have my own position on the issue. But what I would love to see is that even if subsidy will be removed, there should be a soft landing for people. You know, if we currently buy petrol at 250 now, subsidy is removed, perhaps we buy at 500. That astronomical jump, about 100% increase, might be too much to bear. So if there's a way it can be faced in phases, done in phases, I don't know, but I mean, it's really going to be somehow for a lot of people, and that's where my concern is. Yes, and then another thing that has always been a thing of concern is how the government, uses the resource or the money that's been saved from all of these things. Because when subsidy removal is removed, what happens? What are the gains? Those are the aspects we should be looking into. It's not just we'll do that and then people would move on. But what happens, in the later days? Are we going to see a very, huge change in the society to pinpoint that, yes, this is what we use the subsidy removal, this is what we use the proceeds from that to do? We're having refineries, it's going to start working, all of these things. And that's the problem, that we're talking about trust with Nigerians. And so it's I can see why some people are not going to support the subsidy removal. Of course, it's important. It's clear to see why there are people on the other side of the fence. Yes, I know that if you can give them, some sort of word or assurance that this is going to be a force for good, then people will have no choice but to, comply. But I'm moving quickly from that to page 6. It says PDP obeys court order, replaces Ayu with Damagum. And that's on page 6. And 1 year after, Kaduna government releases personal belongings to train attack victims. Well, I'm wondering why it took that long. But then it's a sober time for Nigerians. Yeah. It's a time to reflect on a lot of things, including our security, but most especially our humanity. Yesterday was that anniversary, March 28th, and I saw pictures of Dr. Chinelo, who died in that train attack, and she was one of the first persons who tweeted that she had been shot. Yes. And some persons we're mocking her. How can you be shot and you are tweeting this is fake news? The most painful one was the person who asked, "Are you dead now?" Where did all our humanity go? It could be anyone. The people who have containers falling on them in Lagos don't wake up in the morning and dress up and say, "Okay, I'm going out today. A container will follow me. Dear Lord, accept my soul when I come." People don't plan for these things. It could be anybody. Yeah. Anybody can fall victim. And you never can tell how you're going to react. What's your best reaction? I keep saying that until it hits close to home, we are most times emotionally disconnected from the plight of others. Yeah. Asking someone who says she's been shot if she's dead now, before you even confirm the veracity of the news, it's just unfair to that lady, and may her soul continue to rest in peace, and that of others who died. We need to do better and be more humane, if you ask me. And then I think it also speaks to the platform where it was released. The platform is known for a lot of things. Yes, things, but I think that I also think that I think that no matter how much, in quote now, cruise or banter, there are things you should. I have a habit of, when I see a tweet, I open the person's profile and I go through their tweets.
Yeah, at least you can know
Yes,
what kind
if
of
I
person.
see the first 5 retweets or tweet, I know though this person is serious or this person is joking. Someone says I've been shot. I'm on the train. I mean, first thing you should do is, okay, give us information on what is happening. You don't ask, are you dead now? It's not humane at all. Not very nice.
All right, just below the nameplate, Labour suspends strike, CBN picketing to monitor cash flow for 2 weeks. That's on page 3. We hope that the Labour can also find a way to monitor.
And we hope that Emefiele now repays this gesture kindly by allowing money circulate. Yes.
All right, on page 4, the Goa's case file no longer with police.
I can understand that headline. It's a little bit sort of a clickbait. So for people to open, you might find out that the case file has not been given to the DSS, so it's now in court or something. But if you want to get more on that story, of course, page 4 is where you go.
And on page 4 still, Tinubu cancels 71st birthday colloquium for national prayer. Tinubu cancels 71st birthday colloquium for national prayer.
All right, from The Guardian, we'll move over to the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The banner headline says, Abuja Kaduna train 1 year after attack. Full services yet to resume. Riders say house security operatives averted another attack. Train lacks central lock, poses no security sources, and deploy more technology victims. Worrisome rider there about the lack of a central lock.
Very worrisome.
And it's okay. It's also good that the victims are trying to remind the government.
Yes,
to deploy.
saying poses no security risk. And so it means that before this, the train station can be opened again, they should look into that aspect. And so it won't be just immediately after it reopens, another attack would be landed on these people, and then it will be more devastating than the first one.
Well, it should be more devastating, and also the need to deploy more technology as raised by the victims. We hope that also sails true. But also below that story is a worrisome picture. A hotel under construction which collapsed in just yesterday. So many buildings are springing up these days, but you begin to wonder who exactly is building what, and what's the quality of materials that are used to build these things, really. It's worrisome, if you ask me. I mean, see the picture of the construction there.
And we don't know if there were any casualties.
Yes. Anyway, we'll move on from that to the bottom strip. Lassa fever kills 142 persons in 23 states in 11 weeks. I was saying yesterday that apart from COVID, there's some other diseases that are ravaging the country. Also below that, woman gives birth in bandits' den, baby killed, mom freed. Page 24. Sad story coming out there.
Very sad.
NLC issues 2-week fresh ultimatum over cash scarcity, subsidy removal. Buhari's government hands off palliative implementation. And below the nameplate, PDP, how NWC sacked IU despite resistance. NNPC to raise crude reserves to 50 billion barrels. Explores Nasarawa oil field, as on page 27. Oh, well, that's where we'll leave the papers this morning. We'll take a break, and when we'll come back, we'll bring you our guest to discuss our topic for today.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Turn it up is the wild, wild. Turn it up is the wild, wild west. And Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be shown on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
Here are 5 amazing fun facts I bet you never knew about Christianity.
Number 1, there are over 2.4 billion Christians worldwide.
Amazing fun fact number 2. The Bible is one of the best-selling books of all time, with more than 100 million copies sold every year.
Most Christians believe in heaven and hell.
The Bible is the most translated book in the world, with more than 3,000 languages.
Amazing fun fact number 5. Most Christians throw science out of the window without realizing that most scientists are Christians. Hello, I am Pastor Steve Akinwumi.
And I am Dr. Adeoye Oyewole.
Join us as we highlight and discuss day-to-day issues pertaining to the day-to-day living of every Christian.
Issues in Christendom shows every Sunday on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
According to the words of Michael Forbes, one who never asks questions either knows everything or nothing. Watch me as I ask the questions you think no one wants to answer. Even questions it appears no one has got the guts to ask. My name is Femi Adefila and I've got the gut. Let's ask the pertinent questions and watch as we get answers.
Can you imagine the feeling when you get your news as they break with facts and clarity? Our news are reported as it is.
In Africa, and all those who masterminded the way it happened will have to pay a price.
Enjoy Western programs, projecting culture and tradition to the world. Brought to you as the break and recapped every hour for your update.
We must never forget the sacrifices of the heroes of Nigeria's democracy.
Produced and brought to you in a unique way never before seen.
Western Spring.
Western Spring.
And Western Spring Television. Television is coming home in your color and culture.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
and your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
On this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Èdè Yorùbá jẹ́ ọ̀kan lára àwọn èdè tí wọ́n ń sọ ní agbègbè Niger Congo. Èdè Yorùbá gbajúgbajà ní àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè tó ń bẹ ní ẹkùn ìwọ̀ oòrùn ilẹ̀ adúláwọ̀. Ó kéré tán, àwọn ènìyàn bíi mílíọ̀nù 14 ló ń sọ èdè Yorùbá lónìí. Ètò akọ́mọlédè ló ń dé sójú ìwòran yín láti iléeṣẹ́ móhùnmáwòrán WSTV ìkànnì 150 channel 190 lórí StarTimes. Folúṣọ́ Ayaolúwagbémiga, ìyá ìjọ pèdèpèdè ìyá akọ́mọlédè ló kọ tèmi. Yorùbá dùn púpọ̀, Yorùbá ò lè kú, Yorùbá ò lè parun. Tiwa làṣà, tiwa lèdè, tiwa nìṣẹ̀ṣe akọ́mọlédè.
Atótó arére.
Kò ṣeé má gbọ́ ìròyìn.
Evelyn Ohiole,
Hi.
King Eve. How are you today?
I'm good, I'm fine, I'm alive.
I really feel like she's not giving the right answer to the question. When one asks you, how are you? And you said, you're saying, I'm alive. It's very annoying, seriously. How are you? I'm fine. I feel I'm fine will be the right answer instead of I'm alive. Not that I asked you if you're dead before.
Go and check all these 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, everybody, they are extraordinarily sexually active.
I feel is being unnecessarily hyper when it comes to the issue of sex, because we talk about other topics and he feels so reserved. He really doesn't have anything much to say when it comes to other stuff. But when it's the issue of sex, I believe he's being unnecessarily hyper. That's when I have to pick an issue with him. I mean, it's just being unnecessarily there when we're talking about sex. Just like a child, his mom just got him his favorite chocolate or ice cream, very happy, doing as though if he doesn't have sex for a day, he's going to die.
When it comes to finance, women don't support their husbands financially. You need me emotionally. You need me spiritually.
Cassie is an amazing person, but I hate the too much attachment to that gender. I need you spiritually, I need you mentally. I can get these things anywhere with money. If you go by the topic was, who does marriage favors the most? I know how many jobless women they marry every Saturday. They are saying it favors you, favor. At the very so.
All right, thank you for staying with us, for keeping faith with us on Western Spring Television. It's still Morning Spring, and it's time to bring in our guest. Prince Ademola Oyedepo is a legal practitioner who joins us live on the line via Zoom. Good morning, Prince Oyedepo.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Western Spring Television.
All right, thank you for joining us. So, few days ago, the president assented to 16 out of 35 bills that were sent, 35 constitutional amendment bills, the fifth alteration that were sent to him. Let's start with what you make of the president signing just 16 out of the 35.
What I made out of that is that it's a good development. It's a good development. It builds that the aspect that was signed are forward-looking. It ranges from the teething issues of devolution of power between states and federal governments to entrench true federalism in our polity. And then the most important aspect that was not signed, one will not say is due to the fault of the president himself, but rather to the overbearing influence of state governments over the State House of Assembly. All of us know that National Assembly cannot unilaterally amend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria if one reads Section 8 and 9 of the 1999 Constitution. The process of amendment involves both houses in the National Assembly and all the state houses of assembly throughout the 36 states of the Federation. So the worrisome aspect is the refusal of the state houses of assembly across the length and breadth of this country to consent or assent to the issue of financial autonomy and legislative autonomy for local government. Those are the areas of the constitutional amendment bills that was not passed by the state houses of assembly across the country. And definitely, if it was not passed, you don't expect the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to sign it. But the areas that were signed is the amendment itself, according to the press statement by the spokesperson of the National Assembly of the House of Representatives, Mr. Wase, 35 bills were considered by the 27 state House of Assembly, and only 24 were approved as required by the Section 9 of the Constitution. So they failed to approve those 2 bills. That is the one relating to financial autonomy of the and legislative autonomy of the local government. But the full list of the 16 constitutional alterations that were approved, the first 4 relates to the alteration of names of some local government. Afiko local government, Kunchi local government, Egbado North, Egbado South, Afiko South, Atigbo, and Obia or Akko local government. Those are, it must be important to those local government. But the ones that concerns the generality of the people of Nigeria.
So we'll get there. So, Prince Oyedeokun, I was going to ask you too, that before we come to the bills that were not signed at all, let's look at the ones that were signed now. And before we take them one after the other, in totality, in summary, do you think that this is good for the Nigerian state? And is it far-reaching enough for you?
It is safe, and except that of the local government autonomy, financial and legislative autonomy, that was refused. I feel that very, very disturbing. But the rest are very, very good for Nigerian economy and development. Think of removing the railway from exclusive preserve of the federal government to give the state powers to start their own railway corporations. And then think of the independence or the removing the electricity power to generate, transmit electricity from the exclusive preserve of federal government and giving it back to state. Any state that desires it now, in an unambiguous manner, can generate electricity, can transmit electricity without any hindrance from federal government. So you can imagine the contribution, power generation by state governments, independence or power or autonomy to create a railway corporations.
All right,
the railway lines.
Okay.
Give impact.
Go ahead.
So it's very good for the Nigerian state.
All right, so now let's look at these bills. One of the bills that were assented to was a bill to provide for the financial independence of state houses of assembly and state judiciary. That has been a bone of contention, over the years. The state local government joint account funds, as well as that of the judiciary, has always been in contention. This bill now, how will it settle that contention?
Thank you very much. See, the problem we're having in giving financial and legislative autonomy to local government is derived from the overbearing influence of state governors on the state houses of assembly. You and I know that as before now, the state house of assemblies, they don't have financial autonomy. They are supposed to be an independent body that should be able to exercise its legislative and supervisory powers over the actions of the executive. But how do you do that? If you, as a member of House of Assembly or the Speaker of a State House of Assembly, you will always have to go cap in hand to the executive to run your assembly, to finance your members and your process of legislative processes, the process of your legislative lawmaking. You always go camp in hand to the governor to get money. No wonder the governor will be the one to choose when a speaker should vacate in office, because a governor can just manipulate by using financial power of financial control it exercises over the legislative house to influence members to remove a speaker. And a speaker who wants to consolidate his presiding power over the house will always play to the tune of the state governors. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. So the refusal of the beneficiary of lack of financial autonomy by local government are the states and the state governors. So the refusal of the states House of Assembly across the country to consent to the financial autonomy and legislative autonomy to the local government was actually influenced by the state governors. By having financial independence now, the state House of Assemblies across the country will be extricated from burdensome influence of state governors on the affairs of the legislative houses. They can now boldly, without fear of financial starvation, check the excesses of state governors. It is really commendable. The same thing goes for the judiciary. Because what we are looking for is true federalism, and that includes separation of power. Yes, no power is absolutely separated. The state governor will still have to approve the appointment of judges, but it should end there. The state governors should not have influence on the finances of the judiciary. If the judiciary does not have, or the legislative house do not have financial independence, they are subject to the control and undue influence of the executive who finance them. This is very, very commendable and is forward-looking. It is applauded.
Okay, so now the one other interesting bill that was assented to is the bill to move the item railways from the exclusive list to concurrent legislative list, and also to allow states to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity in areas covered by the national grid. These two issues, especially power, have been threatening to cripple Nigeria's economy. Do you think now that this bill can revive that and help the states, take responsibility for themselves?
Of course. It is expressed that any state now that is really looking for IGR will invest heavily in power. It is innovative. States now can generate power independent of the federal grid and sell to its citizens. It will improve the IGR of states, and I will encourage states that are barren in terms of internally generated revenue to now invest heavily in power. So before now, they could not do that without the concurrence of the federal government. Even before you have some plants in your estate, you will have to apply to federal government before you generate power for your estate. All these things now will be different. And if this amendment to this part of the Constitution will definitely affect the federal legislation in respect of power regulation, the regulatory power of the federal government, the National Electricity Regulatory Council. I know their power will still remain to regulate, because if the federal legislation conflicts with that of states, we know that of the federal fails. I agree that there should be one singular regulatory agency nationwide, but the power given to the states to generate, transmit, and sell their own power will definitely help a lot of states. They can set up a medium power generating plants in remote communities. This will help our rural areas, and it will definitely help the economies of different states. Definitely, all of us know, once you give Nigerians power, our people are creative and industrious enough to maximize their productivity. Nigerian IGR will grow if only states can exploit this new innovation that has given states independence to generate, transmit, and sell powers. It is good for the state. The same thing goes for railway. States can come together, like the Southwest region, that are planning through Dawn Commission to have regional railway network. It will help agriculture. It will help easy movement of goods and services. The amendment is really very, very desirable. commendable, and is very, very good for the development and prosperity of Nigeria, especially those two areas, economy, electricity and railway.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it, expecting state government to now take responsibility for themselves. But do you think that the state governments can handle this? I think that's where the bone of contention is now. Can the state governments afford to handle this?
Definitely. We know that some states are poor. They are apparently poor. Their IGR is low. They are dependent on federal handouts. They call it federal allocation, monthly allocation. But the world has moved past government institution shouldering responsibilities on investment or in the production of services to its citizens. What states who do not have financial wherewithal to establish in power would do is to partner with private sectors in their respective states. There are international power companies that are ready to invest in Nigeria, but the regulatory atmosphere was not conducive. You will have to go through bottlenecks of federal regulations, approvals, and so on and so forth. If a state that does not have financial strength wants to establish in power sector, it does not have to use its own money. They can do public-private partnership to invest in power. And then, here they go. The state begins to have power. There will be no over-dependence on the federal generations and power plants. So a state does not have to be Lagos. A state does not have to be Rivers. A state does not have to be Delta that are all producing and having the financial muscle to invest in electricity generation and distribution and sale. The same thing goes for railway. It must not be by the personal money of the state government. They can do partnership with private sectors that are ready to invest in Nigeria. And that will also shoot up our foreign direct investment in this country. Any angle you look at, these are very good development for the country.
Okay, do you not think that this partnership would be to the benefit of just the state government? Do you think that the people will be able to afford, to get power, at very affordable, tariffs?
What this amendment portends to Nigeria is that there will be competition. What it portends is that it's going to be competition. Look at the communication sector. Do we have any communication company that belongs to federal or any state government? Are we able to afford it? Yes, we are able to afford it just because we have choices. So what the federal government through the electricity distribution company has created as it were now is monopoly. It's monopoly that makes it difficult for us to get electricity at affordable price. But once it is devaluated now, it is being done. Once the regulation as well as the federal legislation on it is amended, and states are allowed to generate their own electricity, they can partner with private companies to generate electricity. Citizens will have choices, and definitely the price will come down. It is good for the betterment of Nigerians and affordability of electricity supply. I believe so. So if we have federal railway and we have state railway or regional railway, definitely there will be competition and the Nigerians will be able to afford it. Okay. But monopoly will definitely keep on crushing Nigerians.
Okay. Now, another interesting bill there now that we need to look at, that some persons have raised concerns about, is the bill that requires the president and governors to submit the names of persons nominated as ministers or commissioners within 60 days of taking the oath of office for confirmation by the Senate or State House of Assembly. It's a very good bill on paper. But we know that some of these persons, president and governors, are reluctant to elect commissioners because they have cases in the tribunal. And in case you can't just nominate your commissioner and then the Supreme Court takes you out of office, or the Court of Appeal and all of that. How do we marry all of this? The fact that court cases usually is what delay many persons from having their cabinet formed.
As an individual, I don't see how pending cases in court precludes a person in office who is already exercising executive power either at the federal or state level from appointing commissioners or ministers. Once they get into the office, they begin to exercise executive power. Appointing ministers and commissioners are part of these executive powers you exercise. So if the pending case against you as an elected person whose election is being contested, if the pending case does not preclude you from exercising your executive power in respect of other items of governance, how does that then preclude you or prevent you from appointing ministers or presidency? Well, I want to believe that this particular alteration actually wouldn't have come from the president himself. It could be a private member bill or public proposed bill. You recollect in 2011, when President Buhari was elected, it took too long before the ministers were appointed, and that is not good for our government. It's not good for our governance. The executive power of state or federation is vested in the president and state governors, and the Constitution says this executive power should be exercised through an executive council consisting of ministers in the federal level and commissioners at the state level. So when a person is elected and then the person turns it to a one-man show and the person begins to exercise the executive powers solely by himself alone, without a weekly state executive council that is also a constitutional requirement, it's an aberration and should not be allowed. So the issue of pending case, which does not preclude you from paying worker salary, which does not preclude you from signing contracts for your friends and cronies, which does not prevent you from taking salary, from initiating projects, from setting up programs. How does that prevent you from appointing people that will assist you in exercising your executive power? And if at the end of the day, the decision of the tribunal or the appeal tribunal or the Supreme Court does not go in your favor, if it does not go in your favor, I have not seen where a law signed by such person has been undone. Every step or action taken by that person subsists because it was presumed to have been regularly done in law. So when you are going, then you go with your commissioner. So being in office without the ministers or commissioner, to me, is a form of dictatorship. And it's an aberration, it's an affront on the Constitution, which requires executive power to be exercised through executive council, not through a dictatorship.
Okay, so before we let you go, one of the bills that was not assented to, the Senate now constituted a committee to, look into the reason President Buhari didn't sign the bills. But one of the bills that was not assented to by the president, one of the 19 rejected bills, was the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, 5th Alteration Bill number 10, Enforcement of Legislative Summons, Sections 89 and 129, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to compel persons to obey or comply with legislative summons. Are you happy as a legal practitioner that bill was not assented to?
The failure of the president to assent to that bill, to me, would be without an intention to sound derogatory. I would say it's an executive rascality. It's an executive rascality. And in a sane society, I don't think that bill is necessary, where the rule of law is duly respected. How do I mean? We have the Legislative Privileges Act. That's a law. And it is under that act that members of the executive or members of public can be summoned to appear before the National Assembly for questioning in the exercise of their legislative oversight function under the Constitution. We have seen at various times when the legislature either at the federal or state level, we summon a minister, that is a member of the executive, to appear before it. And arrogantly and contemptuously too, I would say, executive, they choose when to honor legislative summon and when not to. That is an embarrassment to democracy. That is against the rule of law. That is an affront on separation of power. And it needs to be cut. So the National Assembly looked at that, the Act, the National the Legislative Privileges Act, and discovered that it's like the legislatures are like toothless bulldog that can only bark but cannot bite. What do they do when the member of executive disrespects the legislative summon? I think that is what necessitated that bill. And ordinarily, I would have expected the president to sign that bill, but his refusal to sign it, to me, is very, very ugly. And I believe the legislature should, as a matter of course, revisit that act and veto it.
All right.
Because, as much as I can remember, it is not a constitutional amendment. It should not be a constitutional amendment, except they want to make it part, they want to insert it in the Constitution now. That is why they will need houses of assembly. If they are inserting it into the Constitution now, it is right. It will give the legislative arms of government power to enforce their summons and to deal decisively with an erring member of the executive or members of the public, a summon who has refused to honor them.
So, okay, thank you so much, Mr. Prince Ademola Oyedeokun, who joined us live via Zoom to discuss these issues on the bills assented to. 16 out of 35 were assented to by the president, 19 were rejected. On the Senate, under the leadership of Ahmed Lawan, has constituted a committee to look into those rejected bills and why. And Prince Ademola Oyedeokun has just suggested that one of those bills be vetoed by the Senate. We'll wait to see if the Senate will toe that line, especially in the twilight of President Buhari's administration. Thank you so much, Mr. Oyedeokun, for your time on the show this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Western Spring TV. Thanks to Nigeria. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so that's the first leg. Interesting. I found it when I was going through, the bills. I found it interesting that the president did not assent to that bill, and like he said, I think it was even unnecessary in the first place. In the place where the rule of law is sacrosanct, we don't need to include it in the Constitution that you have to respond to legislative summons. I mean, we've seen democracies in the western part of the world where even presidents are summoned to legislature and they honor it. Yes.
It's just a rational thing to do, and I think it speaks to the fact that our rule of law is being disrespected and being watered down by
those who should uphold it.
Exactly, and the president was supposed to have stepped up to action, especially when there was one that actually concerned him in the first place. I find it ironic and worrisome too that he had to sign into law, what he did wrong. And I think it's just maybe in retrospect, thinking about it, that wasn't the right move to do. I wanted to ask you, and I will still ask.
Wait to see if it's in retrospect. But we'll take a quick break. Then when we return, we'll have a second guest to now look at some of these bills that were rejected and also, place them side by side, the realities of our country. To stay with us.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Eva is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, Nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Turn it up! It's the Wild Wild West. And Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trendy conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be shown on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring you're watching, and we're still looking at some of the bills that have been assented to and rejected by the president as forwarded by the Senate. We're joined live in the studio now by one of our analysts and the former chairman editorial board of the Daily Independent, Abakomi Ademili. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so let me take you up on some of the bills that were rejected. The first one is the bill Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Fifth Alteration Bill number 10, Enforcement of Legislative Summons, sections 89 and 129, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, obey or comply with legislative summons. And number 9 on the list of rejected bills now is the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria number 48, power to summon the president and governor, section 67 and 108, a bill for an act to alter the second schedule to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to empower the National Assembly and state houses of assembly to summon the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and governors of states to answer questions on issues on which the national and state houses of assembly have the powers to make law. These two bills were rejected by the president. What is your position on that?
Well, to me, it's tragic, because I can understand, not accept, but I can understand a president that had just come in rejecting those bills for self-preservation. What is strange is how a president who is on his way out, it's less than 100 days now from today, it's less than 100 days. Why did you not just sign yourself into history? This bill is not going to affect him. Nobody's going to summon him to the National Assembly next week. People have other things on their minds, you know. And I thought that that bill was vitally important because the country is so badly run, because people can shield themselves from the very defective constitution. That bill should have been in the 1999 bill, just 1999 constitution, just as a provision should have been made in the president and the state governors to make a state of the nation or state of the state speech once a year. This thing is tragic. I wish the president could go back and sign that bill, because you have to compel public officials. Ideally, in a proper functioning democracy, we've seen it every day on cable network news and other things, the president himself or the prime minister should willingly go in front of parliament and explain himself. But that's not going to happen because of defective institutions and a lot of under-the-counter means. I think that if the president doesn't sign it, it puts a stain on his legacy. He was right to have taken electricity and railway out of the exclusive legislative bill and into the concurrent. For that, history will be very kind of, again, that is the kind of thing that should have been done 30, 40 years ago, but better late than never, as we say. But this thing is tragic. The long-term consequences of not signing that bill. And I don't understand, you're on your way out of office, you've got nothing to lose. It's something that is badly needed if this country is going to function properly and if you're going to have real accountability. Because all this idea, publics are shielding themselves. Isn't this why you have a crisis of people queuing up of God knows how many hours to collect a miserable 3,000 naira, which you can't even last you for up to 20 minutes? You have a situation in which one person takes off with 100 billion naira. Can you imagine 100 billion naira? Calculate if you translate that into dollars and you talk to somebody in Togo, that somebody, I can't understand what's the budget of the Republic of Togo. All these things are why the country is a badly run country, why there are wastages and leakages, and the country is dysfunctional. It's because there's no fear that the parliament will summon me and has the right. If I don't turn up, I could end up on an unpleasant place, that kind of thing. There's no deterrence. You just do whatever you like because you know you can keep stalling parliament. This thing is not just president not accepting to a bill. It is ruinous to this country, and I hope that the next president, the next assembly, will, as a matter of the greatest urgency, put this thing together once again and sign it into law within 6 months, because I cannot think, if this country is ever going to function sensibly, of anything that is much more important. All the existential issues that face us in Nigeria today, and there's so many you can't even count, they're all based on this lack of accountability, on the fact that everything is done under the carpet and nobody knows what is going on. It's a tragic decision for the president. Why he did it, there was no reason to have done it. It's not, like I said, sorry to sound like a broken down character, it's not going to affect him. Nobody's going to come the outgoing president. Everybody has other things on their mind. But it's something that, and you're just taking away what should have been a glorious moment for you in history. And why should anybody do that? It doesn't make sense.
Okay, before my colleague comes in, let me take you up on 2 other bills that were rejected now. Because we talked about the railways and electricity, and people have been commending him for signing
Excellent.
that. Yes. But there's another bill that was rejected, and that is the Constitution of the Federal Republic, Bill number 29 now, Devolution of Powers, Airports, Parts 1 and 2, Second Schedule, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to move airports from exclusive legislative list to the concurrent legislative list. And also number number 8 on that list of rejected bills is the bill number 44. Timeline for the presentation of appropriation bills, sections 81 and 121. A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to specify the period within which the President or the Governor of the state shall present the appropriation bill before the National Assembly or House of Assembly. These two bills are separate, but they're very important. Yes, the one moving the airport, he didn't sign that. The one asking that there should be a specified period of time. I mean, the budget circle seems to have generated controversies over time. Do you think this could have laid that controversy to rest?
Certainly. And, rejecting those two bills again, I don't know what sense it makes. I don't know how it's going to destroy the country. I don't know how it's going to help the country. I mean, there's no way that if you spend the whole day thinking about it, you can't justify it. Because first of all, there is no reason why, first of all, I can't understand how you can have a federal republic, the emphasis on federal, that has about 60 items on the exclusive legislative bill. You know of any other country like that? I'd like to be enlightened. You have data on your phone. Please help me out. I personally, to broaden it out, I don't see how a federal republic should have more than about 8 items on the exclusive legislative bill. Is it still a federal republic if it has 8? Work it out for yourself, federal, and then you have 60 items on the exclusive. It doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction in terms. And then secondly, why shouldn't states or even local governments have airports? If you look at a properly functioning federation, in Nigeria, the Nigerian Ports Authority, or whatever they call it, they own the port of Lagos, which is Apapa Port, about the biggest port in the country, or the most functional. A lot of people didn't know until the World Trade Center crashed down, because the World Trade Center at the time was owned by the Ports Authority of New York. Well, the Ports Authority of New York is actually owned not by the federal government, but by a local government. That has not stopped New York from functioning. That has not stopped from making America the most important country in the world. But the Ports Authority is like Apapa local government owning the ports. You get what I mean? Or Ikeja local government owning Murtala Mohammed Airport. What's the big deal about that? We've talked all this. That's why the country is not growing now. I don't understand if you go through all the regulatory functions, safety, environmental impact. I don't even understand why even a private individual can say, why turn airport into such a big deal? I mean, it's as if airport, you have a regulator there. You have all the national security mechanisms that you have to work in, if that's what you're afraid of. These are trivial things. Nigeria, this is 2023. Nigeria should be talking about airports being on the exclusive legislative list. What's that going to do with the price of sliced bread? And then the appropriation one is even more. Well, it doesn't make sense. I didn't want to use the word destructive because I'm on air. But I would have thought that, if even you as an individual, you have a personal budget and you have to fix, you have to have timelines. You can't just get a paycheck at the end of the month. I received a paycheck for many years, decades, but you just don't, especially when you get married, now you go haywire and blow your salary in the beer parlor in one day. The credit allowance, well, there were no credit allowance then, but you got the paycheck, I got so much more. How can you run a functioning economy without fixed appropriation timelines? It doesn't make sense. First of all, it means that you have the fiscal discipline and accountability ready. It means that the process is predictable. It's predictable in terms of the investment climate. The investor knows when a budget is going to be presented, the amount of time that the scrutiny will be done, and the amount of time when the president or the state governor is compelled by law, and it's an impeachable offense now if he doesn't sign it. So there's predictability. Nothing affects investment climate more. The creation of jobs, the smooth run of the economy, even the cost of borrowing money, interest rates and stuff, than the predictability of the appropriation sector. The appropriation sector is very important because it's a guideline, it dictates, it gives the investor exactly, and anybody making it, including you buying a loaf of bread, as to, things are predictable. You know how things are going to, you know the fixed time. But this is a country now where you think that, okay, even the universities don't have a predictable forum anymore. I mean, ideally, you should be able to know, even when somebody in primary school is going to graduate from a university. If you really, what's the big deal about that? Somebody is doing JAMB today. You should be able to know, not doing JAMB, but somebody in primary school say, this little Johnny, primary school say, this little Johnny, you know, by the year of the Lord 2030 something, you know, he would have graduated in finished his finals. And we have turned mundane things into big. I don't understand this kind of country. You know, these are mundane things. When is this boy who is 10 years old today? When is he going to graduate from university? You should know that. You know, it's the same thing. How can you run a country? Companies, private companies, even by law, cannot be run like this. They have times when they have to make filings to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, to the tax authorities. Is this same country, you don't tell companies that they are fixed time, like even me as an inconsequential shareholder, my wife is always reminding me of when we have to pay our land use charge in Lagos. You know, Lagos has, I think by March, I think I'm even contravening the law. I haven't paid that kind of thing. But I think we're supposed to pay our land use charge by this month. I haven't paid, to be honest. I didn't remember. My wife is getting old. She's the person who arises, you know, we haven't paid. You get what I mean? So if at the personal level, we know when not to get nasty letters from Lagos State where we have to pay our land use charge every March, how can you now say that you reject the bill? Why? I mean, what is the rationale for rejecting that bill? Because if you say you reject the bill, you have every right to reject it. But what was your rationale for it? Is it a bad thing? Is it going to lead to the end of the world, a breakdown in law and all that? You see, this thing doesn't make sense. The bills that he has rejected, at least the three that we've discussed now, you cannot, even as an academic exercise, you'll have to be a genius, even as an academic exercise, to say, these are the compelling reasons, for national security reasons, for the safety of the country, for the good governance of the country, for the prosperity of the country. These are the reasons why these bills, honestly, even a genius will have to be at the best of his intellect to write an essay justifying the... I don't understand what is going on, you know. Because, I mean, this thing is detrimental to the development of the economy. Everything should be based, except in a war situation, on predictability of processes. If you don't have predictability of processes, it means that you can never be optimal. See, predictability goes with achieving the optimal level. I mean, even in this studio now, you knew when this program is going to start. You know when, even a program at 4 o'clock, you are preparing for it now. The program is 4 o'clock is a long time. I can't remember what the time is now. But even the program that you are going to host or be involved in at 4, right now, all the technical people, yourself, everybody is prepared. 4 o'clock is a long time away. Now, why do you now say that there should not be ability of the budget process, the appropriation process, which includes the predictability of a proper and thorough scrutiny of what is in the appropriations bill? There's something wrong. I mean, it's difficult to work out this thing because, I'm sorry, you have to be careful on air, but it just doesn't add up. And it even doesn't add up, even from an opportunist perspective. The person who is vetoing this bill is on his way out. You got nothing to lose. You don't get what I'm saying? You are not going to be asked to have a fiscal straitjacket that, you know, and you see, this is one of the reasons why there's no thoroughness in what we do. If it's like a student preparing for an exam, having this timelines. A student preparing for an exam knows that his lack of diligence is not going to lead WAEC or JAMB or whatever you call it to shift the exam because of him. He's going to have to, he knows the exam is going to start in 5 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time, 2 months. He now knows that he has to prepare diligently because his father, no matter, His father is the richest man in the world. Can't go to WAEC and say, oh, boy, let me ship the, If you know that you're going to have fixed timelines, you're going to be more diligent in your preparation. Your preparation is better. And it means that you know that you are in a race against time. Just as a student is in a race against time for the exam day. He has to be diligent. He knows that every day counts and that you get what are the consequences of failure. Now, what are the consequences of not? You can just be shifting the timelines. When the director of the budget tells you, Presido, we are not ready, or Mr. Governor, we're not ready. But when you know that you cannot shift the timelines, then you are better prepared. When you are better prepared, the scrutiny is better done. Those who actually analyze and scrutinize the budget process, they too have been on standby, knowing that they have to start working on the 8th of a month or something, and they have to conclude their work by, everything is more thorough. Thoroughness leads to more diligent, better implementation. Look, it's as if by between these things you are saying that there's nothing wrong with this country. There's everything wrong. I mean, when you look at a country, I was terrified, a few weeks ago when I came across reading the papers that 612,000 people, 612,000 National Youth Corps people were given discharge certificate. Life of me, I didn't know that up to 612,000 people get discharge certificates every year from youth corps. I didn't honestly, I thought maybe about 100,000. You get what I mean, There are only 5 million people in Norway, one of the most prosperous. We have 612,000 people. Now, you would have thought that in a country like that, the president of the country wouldn't even be able to sleep at night. And all these bills that you are vetoing, because they've got to get jobs now, they have 40 years ahead of them. 40 years of working. You've got about 60 years of living ahead of them or more. But when you look at that, this kind of problems that we have in Nigeria, there's no rationale for vetoing those bills. And it makes you wonder, why? Why do you do that? It's detrimental to the interests of which is, I just hope that the way out is that the incoming president and the incoming National Assembly have the seriousness to actually conduct a special legislative session. It's been done in other countries in crisis, and review all these rejected bills, because I cannot think of any of these 3 bills that should have been rejected. And all those rejections portend ill for the immediate, short, medium, and long-term prospects of this country.
All right. Because of our time, we'd like to end
Sorry,
it.
I took too long.
No, we'd like to leave it there. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll have you come on some other time to talk about the bills that were actually assented to. Some of them look very good. For the
I really like railways and electricity. I wish they'd been done 40, 50 years ago. Wow.
All right. So that's the conversation this morning. We've had Mr. Kwame Ademili. He's a policy and public affairs analyst and former chairman of the editorial board of the Daily Independent newspapers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks so much.
All right, so I'll be back to tell you who is trending. Governor Adeleke is in the news, as well as former Governor Aregbesola. We'll be looking at some things surrounding MC Oluomo in Lagos. And of course, another interesting one coming from the PDP. So stay with us.
And to Mr. Kwajalaoluwa, to have a nice day. See you tomorrow.
Arrested